Economy means billions of transactions. That's why first we need to understand, what do we mean by the word transaction? Every time you buy goods, services, financial assets against money or credit, is called a transaction. A transaction takes place between buyers and sellers. A market consists of all buyers and sellers making transactions. There are so many different kinds of markets like wheat market, car market, stock market, markets of millions of things. Economy is the sum of all of the transactions taking place in all kinds of markets. People, businesses, banks, governments all are engaged in transactions. In an economy, two entities control most of the transactions, and those are the central government, who collects taxes and spend money. The central bank, who controls the amount of money and credit in the economy. It does this by influencing interest rates and printing money. When a transaction is taking place, a buyer is purchasing goods or services from the seller in exchange for money or credit. Here we need to understand credit, which is an important part of the economy. So what is credit? Credit is nothing but a promise that you will repay someday in the future. For example, suppose you need to purchase a product, but you don't have the money today to purchase it, so you promise the shopkeeper that you will pay him tomorrow. This promise is nothing but credit. Now, this promise or the credit is an asset for the shopkeeper. In future, this promise or credit will translate into money. When you buy a product with cash, the transaction is settled immediately. But a credit isn't until you repay. Just the way buyers and sellers make transactions, so as borrowers and lenders. Lenders lend money to borrowers, so that borrowers can buy something they can't afford, like buy a house, or a car, or something new, like starting a business. Now why lenders are interested in lending money to borrowers? Cause borrowers promise to repay the amount they borrowed, which is called principal, plus some additional money, as interest in future. So lenders will turn their money into more money. As soon as credit is created, it immediately turns into debt. Debt is an asset to lender, and liability to the borrower. Once the borrower repays the debt with money, the asset and liability disappeared and the transaction is settled. In economy, without credit, the more you produce, the more you earn. So hard-working people will raise their productivity and living standards faster than those who are lazy. But with credit, that's not necessarily true. In an economy, with credit, you can borrow to purchase products which you cannot afford with salary, which means you can spend more than you earn. Now, every person's spending is another person's income. Every rupee you spend is someone else's income, and every rupee you earn is someone else's spend. So when you spend more, someone else earns more. When income increases, lenders feel more comfortable to lend. So in an economy where income is improving, credit is easily available. People are taking more and more loans to purchase even more products. Demand increases. When demand rises, the price of the product increases. When the price increases, we call it inflation. The central bank doesn't want too much of inflation because it causes problems. Seeing prices rise, it raises interest rates. With a higher interest rate, fewer people can afford to borrow money, and the cost of existing debt rises because people borrow less and have higher debt repayment. They have less money left over to spend, so spending slows. Now since one person's spending is another person's income, income drops. As income drops, it also destroys the ability to the repayment of debt, When people can't repay the debt, scrambling to fill this hole, are forced to sell assets. The rush to sell assets, flood the market, stock market collapse, the real estate market tanks, and banks get into trouble. Economic activity decreases, and we have a recession. If the recession becomes too severe, and inflation is no longer a problem, the central bank will lower interest rates to cause everything to pick up again. With low interest rates, spending picks up, and we see another expansion. So this way a cycle will be created. Ideally in a creditless economy, the growth should be a straight line, but in the case of an economy with credit, we will have cycles, and these cycles are controlled primarily by the central bank. Now let's discuss those cases when lowering interest rate doesn't work. In 2008, in the expansion stage, when real estate market prices in the USA were sky high, and because of the cheap interest rate, people were borrowing to buy houses at an extraordinary price. People were taking debt, which they can't repay. When banks had to change the interest rate to slow down the inflation, debt payment went so high, people start to default. As we have already discussed, credit or debt is nothing but a promise that you will pay in the future. When you can't pay the debt, credit gets destroyed. Now the best lender could do is seize the property of borrowers. But as we already discussed, real estate prices were extraordinarily high at the peak of the bubble. After the collapse of the bubble, the price of those real estates went so down that banks couldn't recover the money they paid. For example, person A borrowed 50 lakhs to buy a house, but after the recession, when person A can't repay, the bank seized his house. But unfortunately after the recession, the price of the same house was 20 lakhs. It's an example, but it shows how overnight credit got disappeared after the 2008 crash. Now when that happens, bank agrees to restructure the debt. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate that was first agreed. Somehow a contract is broken in a way that reduced debt. Lenders would rather have a little of something than all of nothing. But in some cases, borrower even can't pay that back. In this situation, the central government can save all by increasing spending, so people can get jobs and can start repaying debt. But because of the lower income from tax collection, even government can't sometimes provide stimulus, much needed by economy. People are desperate for money, and you remember who can print money? The central bank can. Inevitably, the central bank prints new money out of thin air and use it to buy financial assets and government bonds. It happened in the US during Great Depression, and then in 2008, and now again during this pandemic. It's happening when the central bank starts buying financial assets with printed money. Price of financial assets go up. This helps bank to recover bad loans. People with financial assets become creditworthy again. Here, the point to be noted is, central bank can't directly lend money to the government. They can buy government bonds, this while they indirectly lend money to government. Now government starts spending that money to build infrastructure and other things, which not only just improves living standard of the country, it also creates new jobs. As more and more jobs are created, income rises, people become creditworthy again, another expansion cycle starts. Now printing money can be both ugly and beautiful, if done in wrong way. Excessive money in the system will lead to hyperinflation, which means if suddenly there are lots of money in the system, people will spend more, and price of products and services will be so high, which will eventually make currency worthless. But if done correctly, newly printed money will fill up for the destroyed credit space and bring the balance back in economy. If you liked our video, please like and subscribe. Also, We have a course on technical analysis, where you can learn directly from professional traders. With their guidance, you can become a professional trader in no time. Thanks for watching our video.